Finally, IO Volare. You might have seen my video, unboxing video of this flagship IEM here from IO Audio, okay? And this thing is priced at 599 US dollar, as you can see here, available from Shenzhen Audio right now. And I would not be spending too much time showing to you what's the content of this, because obviously you can just simply switch to my video, 10 minutes of unboxing, and I will show you some of the details pertaining to what you're going to get inside this particular box. All right. But I do want to touch on some of the element which is, I think, important to this Volare, especially when it comes to the build and the construction itself. First, let's just have a look at the IEM itself. Okay, what's inside this IEM? Okay, this is definitely a hybrid, and it is equipped with this frequency crossover structure, 4-way electronic, 3-way physical. Sounds very advanced to me. And the dynamic driver itself, which is the 8mm driver, it is constructed of silicon rubber and wood dome. So that is practically the first time that I am hearing that type of configuration, to be honest. And this is perhaps the most important part. You see there? Sensitivity rated at 121 dB, but I have also seen it on this box. It says probably like 121. Yes, 121 dB, very sensitive. And that crazily low impedance rating of 4.8 ohm. Practically the lowest that I have seen so far, even lower than HIDIS MS5. Okay, but let me just share you this. This is a multimeter, all right? I have done this several times, but I want to share it to you. What exactly is the impedance? Okay, you see that? Can you see that? 2.9 ohm. That is super crazy low impedance, okay? I have never seen anything as low as this. Crazy, right? Okay, let me just close this. So the actual impedance rating for this Volare measured using this highly accurate multimeter is 2.9 ohm. So remember this. This thing is super sensitive at over 120 dB and very low impedance rating of 2.9 ohm, which means that practically this thing can be used anywhere, okay? Literally anywhere. Okay, so now let's just talk a bit more on another important element, which is the wear factor. As you can see here, okay, for the sake of comparison, I would just simply say that the build and the construction of this Volare, it is made of this hard resin here, okay? And from the chart there, or should I say the differences between some of the IEM which I own, and probably you recognize some of them, which is Sivga Nightingale, Kinera Idun Golden, Bequest Wind, IO Volare itself, and HIDIS MP145. Officially, this HIDIS MP145 is still the largest size IEM in the market right now, okay? And Volare, as noted there, being classified as big. Okay, it is kind of like beefy, big size as compared to the normal size, okay, which you would find in many other IEM in the market right now, which is represented by Bequest Wind. And of course, the slimmest one being Sivga Nightingale. And of course, another type of IEM which you tend to find as well, especially with hybrid, another hybrid which is tall type, which is kind of like, you know, like this, which is Kinera Idun Golden. And I believe looking at that, you will have an idea the size and the dimension of this Volare. Another important element, the wear factor of it. And I think this is super important as well, because if you decide to buy this, you must be aware of this. You see that, okay, from the angle which I am showing you on the screen right now. Okay, that particular 2 circle which I noted there does exhibit some sort of discomfort. Okay, I'm just going to be very open about it, because when I attach it to my ear, okay, and wear it, I tend to use my IEM for up to half a day attached to my ear, especially if I am doing review. And I will admit that after at the mark of 2 hours, I started to feel a bit of discomfort, because my ear kind of a bit shallow, okay, which means that I can literally feel that particular section which I mark in circle there touching my ear. So after a while, okay, despite being highly ergonomic, I do feel kind of that discomfort, which means that I can literally feel it. Okay, so if you have similar ear to me, most likely you're just gonna feel this IEM in your ear. Unlike the Sivga Nightingale, which is as listed earlier, which is very slim compared to this, okay? This thing I can practically wear the whole day without any sign of discomfort or fatigue at all. I am not saying that this is not comfortable. I am just saying that you will feel it once you wear it, okay? And it might take a while for you to get used to it, to a point that it no longer bothers you, okay? And then the next one, ear tips here. The good thing about this Volare is that it comes with 5 different type of ear tips. And after trying all of them, I was just gonna simply put it this way. I reverted back to the original one, which I used initially, which is the foam tip, which I use 90% of the time. And why is it? First, it is super comfortable to my ear, okay? And the most important element is that the sound itself, okay? The entirety of my review after this will be based on the combination of this foam tip provided by IO Volare, okay? Because the rest of the foam silicone tips that you see here, they have 3 different sizes of nozzle and 3 different type of density, all of them silicone. None of them I would consider as being justified to use with this Volare because the sound totally change. Yes, this Volare is very sensitive and very, adaptable to different type of ear tip. I have never encountered an IEM that changes the sound so much with different type of tips. Okay, when I use silicone tips, for example, the one that I use the most, which is this one, TW43, which offer a bit more of larger bore. Okay, meaning that it offers a bit more of performance in the upper frequency, release a bit more of resolution and imaging. But in that process, the thing that I don't like about it is that it also emphasized on some of the lower frequency to a point that it became, the kind of emit the kind of reverb and resonance of the low frequency, which I find annoying. Okay, because if you know anything about me, I always prefer something which is a bit more natural, organic, and neutral sounding. And I don't get that kind of performance from these silicone tips. Perhaps it also boils down to subjective preference. Okay, if you want modern sort of sound, okay, which is energetic, vibrant, and bassy, silicone tips, any one of them will do the trick. Okay, and different density will offer different kind of comfort level and also different kind of effect on the sound. But I think you get the idea. The most natural sound that I am hearing for this IO Volare is from the foam tip. Remember that. Could this IO Volare be the endgame IEM for 2024? Good question, right? And to me, my answer, yes, this is potentially one of the very best that you can get this year. And I will explain why. Okay, in order to do that, just remember, earlier I mentioned about foam tips, okay? Different type of ear tips will emit different kind of sound. And to me, the best combination is foam tip. I'd just like to remind you again because it highly influence the kind of sound which I am hearing from this Volare. And how does it sound like? Just to make things a bit more concise, you see here, Sennheiser HD600. This is my most used headphone, the one that I love. This is a 25-year-old headphone which have existed in the market already, loved by many, known by many, okay, for a very good reason. And you want to know what? The reason that I'm saying this Volare is one of the best, because I am practically hearing almost similar sort of sound presentation from this Volare when I compare it directly with this Sennheiser HD600. So what are the differences? Because you would probably say, hey, cannot be, not possible that something like, identical to HD600. But first, the X factor of this Volare, especially with these foam tips, the timbre, the sound presentation, and the energy is pretty much identical to this Sennheiser HD600, which means that in this current combination, okay, when driven using this favorite dongle of mine, 50% of the time I use with this EPZ TP50 with no oversampling filter, and also this Sony PCM D100, okay, and also this favorite desktop DAC amp of mine, which is JDS Lab Atom 2 DAC and amp stack. Okay, when I compare these two, I just can't help feeling that the similarities between the two of them are just a lot. Okay, I mentioned tone and timbre, the energy itself, the pace, the speed, the rhythm, the prat, pretty much identical. Okay, but the difference is that this HD600 is definitely more mid-centric, more neutral, faithfully neutral, whereas this is bass boosted. Yes, the lower frequency of this Volare is definitely much higher than what is heard from this HD600. This is neutral, natural, uncolored. This Volare exhibit coloration starting all the way from mid-bass to the sub-bass region, okay, but in a good way, okay, something which I can enjoy despite my preference being having something which is highly neutral. And then the next thing is that the articulation of details, okay, the imaging, the crispness of the resolution itself. I am saying that pretty much similar between those two, especially when driven using the same source, using the same port, which is 4.4 mm balance on this dongle, which I have shown you earlier, okay. I am just simply very amazed with the kind of quality emitted by this Volare, because it is not easy to emulate the kind of sound which is similar to Sennheiser HD600, okay. This headphone is known for excellent natural reproduction of sound. So I would even say that, if I were to put it into numbers, this Volare is 80% of what Sennheiser HD600 offers in a very small form factor. And then the best part is that pretty much the soundstage is similar, but this, if ever you want Sennheiser HD600 to be a bit more holographic, then this is probably the answer, okay? And then let's talk about a bit more of the technical aspect of it. Without a doubt, this is definitely one of the best when it comes to resolution, dynamic presentation, the range of dynamic that it can handle, okay, the extension itself is definitely top notch. I have heard so many IM over the years, and without a doubt, this is one of them, which is I consider as the very best, okay? And when it comes to, let's say, the dynamic energy again, okay, one of the key reasons that I compare it a lot with this Sennheiser HD600 because it has that natural organic sense to the flow of the transient itself, never sounding edgy, never sounding offensive, especially with the treble itself. The presentation of the treble is realistic. I do not hear any kind of tint, digital or metallic tint, despite having so many drivers inside. There's good coherency between those high frequency drivers to work together to emit the kind of sound which is more associated with single dynamic driver. So it is definitely natural and organic, yet highly detailed. The texture is really good. The decay is like smooth, airy. It contains lots of air, which I really love. Because sometimes when you look at higher end IEM, they tend to be kind of like overly technical, kind of overly sharp or edgy, like some other IEM, which I will show to you later in comparison. But this is definitely very well balanced with the upper frequency, regardless of what type of music. And when we talk about the mid-range, the good thing is that it is definitely linear neutral, no coloration there, faithful to the intended sound, any type of female vocal, contralto, okay, soprano, you name it, of male vocal, baritone, falsetto, tenor, you name it, all sounded accurate. Okay, I do not hear any kind of hint of coloration or warmth, but it is less mid-centric because the tuning for this Volare seems to be a bit more focused on being V sound curve, whereas this is truthfully flatter neutral sound, okay? And lower frequency. Now, depending on which tip you use, remember, going back to here, okay, it will be not as bassy if you use this foam tip. It edge closer towards being neutral, but what you're gonna get in return is that something which is fast, tidy, with the transient speed itself. It is smooth as it is crisp. The decay well extended even to the lowest frequency of the sub bass. But if you ever feel that you need a bit more of bass, okay, I know that a lot of people enjoy big bass, okay, then just switch to any of these silicone tips here, especially the narrow bore type. Then what you're going to get is something which resonant, stronger, with more impact, with more slam, and depending on which, especially the narrow bore, you're going to get a bit more of sub bass as well. So just remember that, tune it depending on the tips, okay? Last but not least, this IO Volare is super versatile. Regardless of what type of music I thrown at it, as you can see here, my playlist, it contains anything from technical jazz, classical, Vivaldi, Beethoven, Diana Krall, Alison Krauss, rock, metal, you name it, electronic music. This Volare exhibit excellent, perhaps the best sort of versatility that I have ever listened to from any type of IEM this year. Okay, it just simply sounded at home with any one of them. Now let's find out how does this I/O Volare compares against the rest of the competition. What you are seeing on screen right now is some of the collection of IEM which I have tested recently, and that is definitely not all of them. I'm just trying to give you some idea, some perspective. Where does this I/O Volare stands into the competition? So if you look at it based on what I have mentioned earlier, this thing is definitely super impressive, okay? With a total score of 93 out of 100. That is practically 1 point higher than Tanjim Origin, which I reviewed very recently, okay? And I'm just gonna openly say, if I were forced to choose between Origin and this, without a doubt that I would choose Volare. Why? Because I think Volare offer a bit more of flexibility when it comes to different type of sound, especially considering that how holographic and how wide and how open it sounds. Both of them are wide and open sounding, but this is a bit more holographic, especially with spatial imaging, due to this Volare being multiple driver. That different driver was able to actually segregate different layer of music a bit more accurately, a bit more succinctly, all right, as compared to the rest of the competition. It is perhaps one of the very best. And of course, if I were to compare with some of my favorite, I will just openly admit, okay, as noted in green there, my Sivga Nightingale is still the one that I love the most, the one that I use the most, okay. The differences between these two is pretty much something that I would consider as similar to comparing this Sennheiser HD600 against HD650. So, a manner of saying is that this Sivga Nightingale is more like HD650, okay, but a bit more analog sounding, smoother, warmer, and richer in sound texture. And that is the kind of sound which I really love, okay. But this is no less smooth, okay. This is definitely very close to that. And of course, ultimately, my end game is still this Shure KSE 1500 here, okay, without a doubt. This is perfection, as you can see there. Everything almost all 10 at 98 out of 100. I would even say that this I/O Volare bridges the gap between Sivga Nightingale and perhaps this Campfire Solaris 2023, okay? Because that Campfire Solaris 2023 is definitely one of the most very technical IEM that you can see here, okay? Only beaten by Kinera Imperial Loki and also this Shure KSE 1500. But that Solaris tend to be a bit more technical, kind of a bit edgy and less musical. So if you were to tone down, okay, between that Solaris and get a bit more of musical smoothness of this Sivga Nightingale, then probably you're gonna get this. Interesting, right? Very impressive. Again, I would like just to bring to you, remember, comparable to Sennheiser HD600, which means that this Volare, among all the IEM that I have shown to you, except for, of course, KSE 1500 and Imperial Loki, this is definitely the next best thing, okay, for 2024.